So today I am working on a Christmas gift for someone, and it is a hydrangea. I took this photo years ago when I was leaving a craft fair. There was the most gorgeous hydrangeas planted outside the building, and they're my favorite flower. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to take a photo of this, and one day I'll paint it. So I've actually fiddled around with this painting more than once because I have always wrestled with painting florals. And as time has gone on and I've painted them more often, I've gotten better at it. Now, I'm not saying that I'm perfect because I'm not, but if painting flowers is something that you wrestle with, then I just wanted to share with you a petal so that you could see how I do it, and maybe it will encourage you, inspire you to give it a try if you are intimidated by it or feel like you need more practice. So the petal I'm going to do is this one, which is this one right here. And you can see we've got a nice strong shadow right there. I'm going to paint that shadow in first. So the colors that I have on my palette over here is quinacridone rose by M. Graham and phthalo blue red shade by M. Graham. And I'm just mixing some of the rose and some of the phthalo blue together and creating a purple. So I'm going to come over here and start laying this color in where I see the shadow. Now there is a blemish on this petal, but I do not intend to put that blemish in. I want to leave it out, so I'm just going to pretend like it's not there. So I'm following, oh, I got a little bit of water right here. I need to dry that up so it doesn't lift any of my color. So this is my purple that I created with the quinacridone rose and the phthalo blue red shade, and I'm just eyeballing where this shadow needs to go and follow that. And right now I'm just painting wet onto dry. Did not get my paper wet first, and it comes over this way. Okay, so I've got that shape in. Let's make sure that I've got it as close to the image as possible. And I feel like it wouldn't hurt a thing to add a little bit more of the rose in here, because I kind of see that even though it's shadowed and kind of purpley, it sort of has some pinks splattered out through there. So I just picked up some of the rose all by itself on the tippy toe of my brush, and I'm just dropping that in. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so you can see better what's happening. Okay, so see how I've intentionally created some little blooms there by dropping some wetter paint on top of some drier paint. So that's going to give me some texture, and you can tell in the photo that this petal has some texture. Now, I'm not going to get as detailed as this photo is. I simply don't have time because Christmas is basically a week from today, and this painting will take me all week to get finished because there's still a lot of detail that I need to go back and put in some of these areas over here. So again, I'm not going to worry about doing all of the veins and the texture that you can see in this image, just because that would take me longer than a week to do. So we've got that part wet. Now what we need to do is let this dry. So it's going to take about a split second for me to be right back, and for me, it'll take about a minute to let this dry. So I'll be back in just a second and show you how we're going to add another glaze on top of this to finish out this petal. Now it's gotten dry, and we need to put some more color. This is very, very light down here, but then it's also got some pink and that kind of thing going on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do wet into wet this time. So I'm going to get this whole petal wet with water, and I might make mention of the brush that I'm using. This is a Rosemary & Co brush. Love these brushes. This is the Pure Sable Series 99 brushes, and I've been using them now for 2 or 3 months and absolutely love them. They have a really good point to them. Even when I'm using a large brush, it still has a nice point, so that if I need to get down into a small little area of my painting, I can use a larger brush and still do that. All right, so now I've gotten just clear water on this whole petal, and I'm going to take a little, just a teensy bit of the quinacridone rose, and I'm going to drop that in all over the top of this petal. Now this is just more or less a light, like a tea glaze. The color is barely in my brush, and I'm just glazing it all over this petal. All right, so now I've got that light wash of pink in there. but I can see that I need to add a little more texture. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take some of my rose and I'm going to make sure that it's a really drier texture to it. So I've got a little area of the paint on my palette over here, and the paint it really doesn't have hardly any moisture in it at all. So I picked up some on my brush, but then I'm going to wipe most of it back out, and I'm just going to drop some of that. And I need a little bit more on there. I think I took too much out, but I'm going to drop some of this onto the surface of my paper. And I know that I said that I wasn't going to be all detailed, and I'm not, but I do want to add a little bit of that texture that I see in there, just to give it a little bit of some texture. I'm just repeating myself, aren't I? Sorry. I'm focusing and concentrating and doing all these things at one time, and you know, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So if I want to come back in and soften those out, I can just rinse my brush, take most of the water out, and then soften that down a little bit. So if I feel like that I still need to do a little bit more to it, then I can pick up some more watery mixture of that pink. I can also go back into that purple and drop some of that in here and there. I'm just picking up paint that is drier than the paint on the surface of the paper. And that is going to give me some more texture on this flower and help create the illusion of that texture without having to painstakingly paint it all in, which I could do that, but again, as I said, Christmas is too close for me to try to do that and have this painting ready and get it framed and all that before I give it as a gift. So I can also take a little bit of that purple and drag some of that out in here beside the pink. And if anything looks blobby or is not shaped like I want it to be shaped, then I just take a damp brush and I come back in and just move things around, just move the paint around. Okay, so I do see, honestly, a little tiny bit of blue down in here. So I'm going to grab the most minute little bit of blue on my brush. Super a lot of water, not a lot of pigment, and just drop that right in there. Still going to keep my shadow, but also deliver that little bit of blue that I see in there and lighten up a little bit of space in there. And if it removes any of the little texturizing that I wanted, I'll just get a tiny bit of that on my brush and put it back in again. Okay, so that is really looking quite nice. I do know that right over here, because of the way that this petal is shaped, it kind of comes down this way into a V and then rises up. This side of the petal has a little more pink to it just in this area. So what I'm going to do is let this dry. It's starting to dry now, so I don't want to mess with it too much and mess things up. So I'm going to let this petal dry and then come back and do another little glaze of color right in there, just to make this petal have that look that it is kind of cupped down into a V shape where this point is, and that this little section of the flower petal has a little bit of shadow on it. So let me get this dry and I'll be right back and show you how to do that. We are on the downhill slide, about done. All right, so as I said, this petal does have a little bit of some shadowing right here. Mainly it's because of the texture of the flower, the texture that's in that petal. I don't want to have to do all of that, so I don't plan on it. But what I will do, I've got a little piece of fuzz, let me get that off. I will create this little vein that runs right down through there. So I put that color down. Now I'm going to come back with a wet brush and just soften that in a little bit. Okay, then I'll get a little bit on my brush. I don't want too much. And put a little bit of that texture in there. Then I'm going to rinse my brush, come back over the top of that with a damp brush and soften that out. That's going to help create some texture. It's also going to give this portion of the flower that look of having some shadow on it. So I've just put that color down. Now I'm coming back with a damp brush and just softening it back out and lifting it a little bit. So that gives this petal that look that this part is being hit by the sun, then it's kind of curving down into where it cups into sort of a V, and then the sun is hitting that portion. Over here, I'm going to do something very similar to that because I see the same kind of thing happening. So again, what I'm using is my quinacridone rose and the blue mixed together to kind of give it that powdery pink color. So I'm going to put some color over here, and it's kind of willy-nilly, almost like, well, for lack of a better term, it's kind of like little lightning bolts. And then I'm coming back on top of it with a damp brush and softening all of that out. And again, I'm getting the illusion of the texture of that petal, and I'm also creating some shading in this area. Okay, so I am content with how this petal turned out. Let me move that out of the way. I'm going to scoot you back out a little bit so you can get a better view. Don't mind my mess over here. This is my mic wire and all that stuff. So this is how far I've come so far. This is the petal we just did. And what did it take? 8 minutes to do that petal, so that one wasn't bad. This is how I will tackle petals on flowers. And as I said in the beginning, if you struggle with it for whatever reason, I hope that this encouraged you to give it a try. And if you have any questions, I would love for you to reach out and let me know if you have questions. Also, if you want to visit my website, which is www.ninasuggs.com, I have a few tutorials on my website that might help you out. Some of them are, I have it set jingle bells on there. I have a wintry scene on there. I think I've got a tulip. Eventually, I'll have this one on there. So take a look at my website. See if there's anything that you feel like might help you. I do have some free tutorials on there, and then I have a few that are paid tutorials. So you can also email me at nina@ninasuggswatercolor.com. So have a great day. I hope this was a fun tutorial for you.